Chapter 261, A Test of Strength. After creating Spirit Souls, Spirit Ice Douluo Huo managed to obtain an orange gold soul ring somehow, one that provided multiple soul skills from a vicious spirit soul. He was truly outstanding. Soul rings with special colors rarely appeared throughout history, and the legendary Huo Yuao and Tang San were the most prominent examples of people who possessed them. In light of this, even though Tang Wuling only had a single golden soul ring, it immediately attracted everyone's attention. After recovering from her surprise, the old lady furrowed her brows. Your soul ring is quite unique. It doesn't seem to be made of soul power. I sense blood essence fluctuations coming from it, but your soul power is completely serene. Just what is going on? Honestly, I don't know either, Tang Wuling answered calmly. I only know that my blood essence is very powerful. I think this ability came from my bloodline, but since it granted me a soul skill, it seems to be a type of soul ring. As Tang Wuling spoke, the golden ring lit up, and the roar of a dragon erupted from his body. His muscles swelled as a layer of golden light enveloped him. This is Golden Dragon Body. You have the Golden Dragon bloodline. The old lady sputtered. Her words stunned Tang Wuling. The name of the soul skill appeared in my mind. So how does this old lady know it? Has someone been in a situation like mine in the past? No. That's not possible. She said Golden Dragon, but what's sealed inside my body is the Golden Dragon King. They should be two different things. As his mind worked in overdrive to understand the situation, the old lady appeared in front of him in a flash. Punch me. The old lady stared at him with profound, thoughtful eyes. Punch you? Tang Wuling hesitantly asked, clearly taken aback. Although he knew how mighty a Shrek Academy examiner had to be, the old lady before him looked as if she already had one foot in the grave. He doubted that she could take one of his punches. My strength surpassed 500 kilograms long ago, but with Golden Dragon Body, I think it might be over 5,000 kilograms. Don't worry about me, the old lady said impatiently. My old bones are quite tough. If you actually kill me, you can just immediately enter the Sea God's Pavilion. At her words, Tang Wuling sucked in a deep breath and said, please be careful then. And he threw a punch at her. Bang. Tang Wuling suddenly felt something strike his arm, instantly slapping his punch aside. Have you not eaten yet? The old lady barked in a scolding tone. Use some strength. The people watching from the sidelines had clearly seen what happened. The moment Tang Wuling's scaled fist shot out, the old lady casually swatted it away as if it were a housefly. Their awareness of his strength only made this sight all the more shocking. Even if it wasn't a full power punch, Tang Wuling was still a dragon in human form. Yet, she simply, realizing what had happened, Tang Wuling felt better about punching the old lady. He sucked in a deep breath, his belly seemingly inflating as a sharp whistling sound pierced in the air. His arms swelled with even more power than before, their golden scales shining brilliantly. With a loud grunt, he threw all of that power into an explosive punch directed at the old lady. However, this punch was different. A deafening boom rumbled through the room in the wake of his fist, even leaving a golden afterimage. Bang. His fist came to an abrupt hold in the old lady's palm. The old lady hadn't moved an inch and was just as expressionless as before. Tang Wuling felt as if he had struck a wall of rubber, all of his force instantly dissipating. Tang Wuling felt just as powerless as she had. She could actually take my punch without using her martial soul or soul power. She's crazy strong. Is that all? The old lady asked dryly. You're only this strong. The disappointment in her eyes provoked his sense of pride. I'm even stronger than this, he declared, preparing his fist once more. Golden tendrils of light danced about as it transformed into a golden dragon claw. With Golden Dragon Body activated, low rumbles could be heard radiating from his claw, as if its oppressive magnificence alone was enough to make the air tremble. Light flashed through the old lady's eyes. Come, she said. Breathing in deeply, Tang Wuling held his third punch screaming outward. This time he held nothing back, pouring all his strength into this punch. Unlike the second punch, his blood held as all of his blood essence converged on his right arm. The roar of a regal dragon filled the air as he punched. No sonic boom accompanied his fist this time because the air itself parted before its might. Although the old lady remained nearly as motionless as before, this time she threw a punch of her own. Shi, Yue, and Shu Shao and saw light warp around the old lady as 9 resplendent rings of light appeared. Before they could comprehend what was happening, the two fists met. Boom. Flying backward like an artillery shell, Tang Wuling struck the wall 20 meters behind him, embedding himself into it. The old lady remained where she had been standing, unmoving. After a moment, she returned to her seat at the table. Next. Captain, Wuling. The members of Class 0 shouted in unison, immediately rushing to his side. I'm fine, Tang Wuling said with a cough. Debris tumbled from the wall as he extricated himself from it. This wall is really thick. Tang Wuling truly was fine. During the clash of their two fists, he felt as if he were punching a gigantic balloon. A simply overwhelming elastic force had sent him flying into the wall. His was more than tough enough to experience being embedded into the wall and walk away unscathed. But still, it wasn't a pleasant experience. Those 3 punches had depleted him of blood essence, and now his body felt weak. Yue helped him up. Are you sure you're okay? Tang Wuling nodded. Relax. I just need to rest for a moment and I'll be in prime condition. Actually, I guess I'm still a bit hungry. If I had a good meal right now, would my blood essence recover even faster? Too bad there isn't any food here. Preoccupied with Tang Wuling's condition, the students hadn't seen the looks of shock painted on the faces of Shen Yi and the other 2 examiners. Their jaws had dropped. Tang Wuling sat on the chair, took in a deep breath, and began using the mysterious heaven method to adjust his soul power and recover his blood essence. His breathing was still a bit rough as his eyes flitted toward the old lady, all lingering within them. Her strength is unfathomable. I don't think that even teacher Wu could compare. Yue walked to the center of the room, her expression somewhat grim. She did not bow like her 3 classmates before her. Instead, she simply nodded. I'm beginning now. Shen Yi frowned. This was the first time someone ever dared act so haughty in front of a Shrek Academy examiner. The old lady narrowed her eyes and leaned back in her chair. Go on then. Yue's eyes sparkled as 3 soul rings appeared beneath her, 2 yellow and 1 purple. She flicked her hands to form the shape of a bowl with her palms, a yellow light gathering in them a moment later. That yellow light was steady and gentle, the characteristics of the earth element. The earth element spun within her hands and gradually congealed into a physical form. Elemental control. So she's showing the strength of her spiritual power. The 3 examiners instantly came to the same conclusion. However, what happened next challenged their understanding. Yue took the ball of yellow light in her left hand, then began sculpting it with her right. Each soft touch of her fingers created a petal, until finally, she held a yellow flower with 9 petals. The 9-petaled flower spun slowly, its otherworldly nature a mesmerizing sight. The middle-aged man on the right gave a slight nod of approval. Elemental type martial souls were rarely seen, and Yue's wealth of spiritual power and steadfast control over the element proved impressive. However, this still fell within the boundaries of what was considered normal. Chapter 262, titled Douluo. Yue suddenly reached out and grabbed the air, then slowly opened her hand to reveal sparkling specks of blue light. They began to multiply and merge together until a spherical blue light levitated above her palm. She's using the water element, just like the earth element. Yue fashioned azure water element petals from the light ball and floated them above the yellow earth petals. There was 1 less water petal than earth petals, the 2 layers occasionally overlapping as they rotated in sync. Yue's 3 soul rings lit up in turn, each aiding her in a specific manner. Dual element control. What a remarkable martial soul. The 2 middle-aged examiners nodded in approval, but it didn't end there. Yue grabbed at the air again. Strands of green light winked into existence and flew in her hand. Wind element. The 2 middle-aged examiners leaned forward in anticipation. Dual element soul masters existed in Shrek Academy, but a soul master that wielded 3 elements was unprecedented. More elements was not necessarily better. Soul rings usually only affected 1 element at a time, and it was difficult to control multiple elements as they exerted a greater influence on the body. In fact, it was impossible in theory for soul masters to wield so many. The green light transformed into a whirlpool in Yue's hand, condensing into a ball of the same color. It flew above the water petals before separating into 7 petals. She can actually manipulate 3 elements, and with such precision and harmony. What skillful control. Her spiritual power and comprehension of the elements must be deep. But this was still not the end. When Yue clutched at the air once more, the examiner on the right couldn't help but shoot out of his seat. Even Shen Yi's eyes widened in disbelief. She had witnessed Yue use multiple elements simultaneously before, but not to this degree. The air came alive as embers of red light gathered in Yue's palm. A blink later, a fireball stood in its place. Despite the telltale beads of sweat rolling down her forehead, her eyes were never lost their calm. The old lady leaned over slightly, cracks forming in her mask of indifference. 4 elements. She's actually controlling 4 elements. The difference between wielding 3 and 4 elements was an uncrossable canyon. The Douluo continent's soul masters all understood that everything was composed of elements. Moreover, earth, wind, water, and fire were the 4 fundamental elements that made up the world. For her to be capable of wielding these 4 elements, it meant she also possessed the power of creation. Shrek Academy had records of a 3-element soul master, but that person only reached the soul stage level before he was overwhelmed by the difficulty of balancing all 3 elements. Legends had it that should the 4 basic elements ever come into harmony, harnessing their immense power would become possible, and she was to wield all 4 elements in the entirety of Douluo continent history. Gu Yue's performance won over all the examiners. The fire in her hand trembled as all 3 of her soul rings lit up. Not much of each element was used, but in order to give them each a concrete form, she needed to split her mind into 4 parts, paying attention to the equilibrium between elements. The relationships between earth and water, water and wind fire strained her mental faculties, with each additional one increasing the burden exponentially. Yet, she managed to maintain this fragile balancing act. The fire congealed into 6 blazing petals, blossoming above the previous ones. The quad-colored flower slowly spun, a peculiar sight to behold. Not to mention the examiners, even the 3 people most familiar with Gu Yue, the other students of Class 0, gaped at her display. Now that her elemental control was so great, she could unleash a 4-element fusion attack in battle. Of course, whether she'd have enough time to prepare one in battle was questionable, but the fact that it was possible was a testimony to her skill. The examiners knew that Gu Yue had reached the spirit sea realm, otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to accomplish such a feat. Still, she was not finished. Gu Yue clawed and grasped at the air for the 5th time. This time, even the old lady couldn't help but stand up. There's still more. The light beaming in through the windows became tiny golden specks, all converging in Gu Yue's hand. However, she did not force them into petals, but instead, spun them around the 4-colored flower. I present this to you. She raised her head, shooting her gaze at the elderly lady like a laser beam. Suddenly, the flower vanished from her palm in a flash of silver light, reappearing before her target. Careful. Shen Yi cried out in alarm. No longer controlled by a soul master, the 4 elements composing the flower descended into chaos and could explode at any moment. Gu Yue was fully aware of this fact, but chose to do so through a grudge. She did not like that the woman had harmed Tang Wuling. The old lady's surprise quickly dissipated, and she bent her lips into a smile, waving her arm, billowing sleeves trailing behind. A crescent moon appeared behind her, shining down upon the flower. 9 soul rings rose from beneath her. This time, the 4 students of Class 0 could make out their levels. 4 purple, 4 black, and 1 red. Power rolled off her body as the soul rings surrounded her. The moment the moonlight engulfed it, the flower froze in place, as if caught in a trance. Then, ever so slowly, it melted away. The elements returned to their origin, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. 9 rings. She's a tidal Douluo. It was Class 0's turn to shoot out of their seats. All of the children trembled with shock. 9 rings. She's a 9-ringed tidal Douluo. Is that a legendary 100,000-year soul ring? Heavens. She has a 100,000-year soul ring. She's a tidal Douluo. This Shrek Academy examiner is a tidal Douluo. Their hearts were all thrown into pandemonium. Even the calm Gu Yue had a lifeless look in her eyes. To annihilate a 4-element explosive flower in an instant, the same flower that took Gu Yue 5 minutes and over 60% of her power to create, spoke volumes of the old lady's strength. She hadn't even used her full power. Good. A grin was plastered on the old lady's face as she turned to Shen Yi. She did quite well to have me extend the exam period for these kids. This girl doesn't need to take the following trials. Let's have her directly into the inner court. Even I can't help myself at the thought of a 6-element soul master. This has to be a first in the entire history of the continent. The old lady walked over to Gu Yue and looked her up and down. Girl, do you want to become my disciple? She asked with a smile. Chapter 263. I don't want to. Girl, do you want to become my disciple? She asked with a smile. Gu Yue was taken aback, but immediately shook her head. I don't want to. You don't want to? The old lady was dumbstruck. Why? No reason. I just don't want to. Gu Yue, don't speak like that. Shen Yi quickly approached to reprimand her. Do you have any idea who this is? Elder Kai is an elder of Shrek Academy's most guarded sea gods pavilion. Her title is Silver Moon. She's the Silver Moon Douluo that stands at the summit of the continent. You're lucky to have the chance to become her disciple. Obviously, none of the students were familiar with this esteemed old lady before. However, the mere mention of the Silver Moon Douluo sent shivers down countless people's spines. 6 years ago, she had a reputation throughout the continent as a heaven-shaking eccentric, yielding to no one and always doing as she pleased. Her common rampages had flipped the entire Soulmaster world upside down. Peace only returned to the continent when Shrek Academy dispatched people to retrieve her. Like so, she vanished without a trace from the public's eyes. Gu Yue met Shen Yi's eyes, but she nodded her lip, shaking her head again. She hit Wuling, so I don't want to be her disciple. Neither Elder Kai nor Shen Yi had expected this to be Gu Yue's problem. Her petulant behavior was actually fueled by Elder Kai's punch that had sent Tang Wuling flying. Disgruntled, Elder Kai said, "Nonsense. That kid's claw is special. If I hadn't used some strength to send him flying, his claw would have ripped my old bones and injured me. I didn't even harm him." The 2 middle-aged examiners were stunned at the elder's outburst. There's an apology hidden in her words. She's actually apologizing to a 13-year-old kid. Gu Yue turned to face Tang Wuling. Gu Yue, I'm fine. Really? Think about this carefully. The words tumbled out of Tang Wuling's mouth, clumsily and without grace. He understood how great an opportunity this was. Gu Yue turned back to Elder Kai, her eyes earnest. Wherever they are, I will also be. We won't be separated. If they enter the inner court, then I'll enter too. Why are you such a handful? Fine, have it your way then. I don't care anymore. Elder Kai flicked her sleeve before storming off. Elder Kai's fury shocked Shen Yi. A moment later, she quickly followed to explain on behalf of the students, but Elder Kai would not have it. Tang Wuling approached Gu Yue, tugging her arm. Why did you do that? Why did you let such an amazing chance slip away? Didn't you see how strong that Elder Kai is? She's a 9-ringed tidal Douluo, and her weakest soul ring is still at the 1,000-year level. She even has a 100,000-year red soul ring. Do you have any idea how rare people at her level are on this continent? I can't believe you turned down her offer. Gu Yue met his gaze, the pools of her eyes swirling with honest intention. She hit you, so I'm not happy. These simple words put a lid on Tang Wuling's mouth. Meanwhile, Shishi and Shu Shaoan pulled strange faces. Shishi couldn't help but say, "You know, I always thought I was prideful, but now I know what true arrogance is." Gu Yue, you're so awesome. Shu Shaoan laughed. Big sis Gu Yue is so honest. Really? Tang Wuling sighed within his heart. Will this affect our exam? That Elder Kai seems to be really influential in Shrek Academy. Is there anything good waiting for us now that we've offended her? Sure enough, Shen Yi returned moments later with an ashen expression. She pointed a trembling finger at Gu Yue. You. Who do you think you are? Do you know how many people dream of the chance to become Elder Kai's disciple? Gu Yue remained silent, her head lowered. She had already given Tang Wuling her only explanation. There would be nothing else coming out of those lips. Anxious, Tang Wuling said, "I'm sorry, it was our fault. Gu Yue is a bit tired right now, so she's not thinking properly. Teacher Shen Yi, can we still continue with the exam?" Shen Yi sighed. Your exam should finish here, but you can all continue. I've notified teacher already, so hopefully he can placate Elder Kai's rage. Let's go now. In a quick shuffle, she led them out of the large hall and into the depths of the school building. The 5th trial tests your talent. Well, more like your second profession, Shen Yi said. She asked full of confidence. Teacher Shen, how many points did we get for the 4th trial? 0 points. You all got 0 points. Shen Yi glared at him. 0 points. Isn't that too little? Even if we weren't amazing, shouldn't we still go some points? Or are you telling me Shrek Academy can't be impartial? Is this because we offended that Elder Kai? She nearly exploded on the spot when he heard their score. This was a major setback. Moreover, he felt that their performance had been quite spectacular. Shen Yi swept a deep gaze at them. In Shrek Academy, the Sea God's Pavilion makes the rules. If Elder Kai says you get 0 points, then you get 0 points. No one can dispute it, not even another elder. And now that you've scored 0 points, you can't enter the inner court even if you're absolutely amazing in the later trials. Her eyes shifted to Gu Yue. Do you understand the consequences of impulsiveness now? Gu Yue did not retort, following Tang Wuling in silence. They soon arrived at another chamber. It was about the same size as the previous one, but there were tables spread out across this room, mountains of miscellaneous items littered all over. After surveying the room, Tang Wuling's eyes lit up. Among the many tables was one suited for blacksmithing. However, his elation was short-lasting. Sitting behind the examiner's table was a familiar figure. It was the elder who had stormed off in the previous trial, Elder Kai. She sneered at him when their eyes met. Elder Kai, you. Shen Yi was at a loss for words. Elder Kai snorted. For the fifth trial, you all score 0 points. Rage bubbled to the surface of Gu Yue's eyes at Elder Kai's words, but just as she was about to lash out, Tang Wuling pulled her behind him. Then, he directed a forceful look at Shi to stop him from speaking out too. This was Shrek Academy, the home turf of Elder Kai. It would be pointless to argue against her here. Elder Kai, isn't this a bit too much? Shen Yi made an expression of helplessness and surprise. Although Elder Kai was famed for being an eccentric, righteousness was not part of her character. In the years where she had been stirring up trouble across the continent, she had acted a bit too excessively. Otherwise, Shrek Academy wouldn't have dispatched people to retrieve her. But her current conduct, don't say I didn't give Chawoshi any face. If they do well in the following trials, they will still be able to enter the inner court despite scoring 0 twice. If not, they can go back to where they came from. 0 points. We got 0 points again. Tang Wuling didn't know how many trials there were, but this was already their 5th one. The burden would be hard to overcome. Just what is the passing score? When Gu Yue squirmed behind him, he restrained her with an iron grip. It would be stupid to infuriate Elder Kai any further. He suppressed his fury for the sake of the team. As the captain, he couldn't act first and think later. The future of his team depended on him. Shen Yi's face twisted into a mask of ugliness, and she didn't move until a while later. She knew that the entrance exam had 10 trials, each testing something different and awarding a maximum of 10 points. The highest score possible was 100 points, with 60 needed to enter the outer court. On the other hand, entry to the inner court required at least 85 points scored. Normally in every outer court entrance exam cycle, 1 or 2 outstanding individuals would make it into the inner court. It was a tremendous challenge to do so. Now that the students of Class 0 had lost 20 possible points, they had no choice but to score exceptionally in all of the following trials. However, these trials were no laughing matter. Shrek Academy's entrance exam was comprehensive. Although they had done well in the first 3 trials, that did not necessarily mean they would be as lucky in the rest. The upcoming trials all tested different aspects of their ability, not just their combat strength. Shen Yi did not criticize Gu Yue. There was no point in doing that now. Chapter 264, Trial of Eating. Please. Elder Kai left, slamming the door shut behind her. Unseen by everyone present though, a smile had formed on her lips. Hee hee. I bet that old fart Chawoshi is fuming right about now. Serves him right. Those brats are pretty good. Tempering them a bit more should be fine. She snorted at the thought of Gu Yue. Since you dare to reject me, there will be a time when you come back begging. She crossed her arms behind her back. Her steps light as air as she departed. Aggrieved and indignant, Class 0 arrived at the side of the 6th trial. The 6th trial was truly strange. It tested their capacity to eat. That's right. It was a trial of eating. In front of every person was a giant silver tray, and on top of that tray was a mountain of steamed buns. To one side was a sign that listed the requirements to receive points. It said that eating 15 buns was a passing score, and for every additional 5 buns eaten, another point would be rewarded. However, they weren't permitted to circulate their soul power while eating and could only rely on their own stomachs. They were stupefied by this trial's rules. Both Xu Shaoan's and Shishi's eyes shifted to Tang Wuling. Something flickered beneath Tang Wuling's calm mask as he turned to Shen Yi and asked, Teacher Shen, can we help each other eat for this trial? Still depressed, Shen Yi grumpily replied, if you can eat enough to score 4 points, then you can help the others. This trial was truly strange, but then again, this was expected from an academy as monstrous as Shrek. In truth, what this trial tested was willpower. They had to eat until their stomachs burst. For a normal 15-year-old, 15 steamed buns was an enormous amount of food. Furthermore, by restricting the use of soul power to aid digestion, it was almost impossible for most people to finish. One would need willpower to overcome one's bodily limits. Of course, there were medical staff supervising this trial to ensure that the examinees wouldn't become sick from overeating. The sturdier than normal bodies of soul masters prevented their stomachs from exploding, but that didn't mean they couldn't fall ill from overeating. This seemingly simple trial was, in fact, a devil in disguise, innocently dragging examinees through the depths of hell and making them wish for the sweet release of death. However, today an irregularity had appeared. Thank you, Teacher Shen, Tang Wuling said sincerely. In his mind, this trial was practically made for him. He reached out his hands, picking up 2 buns in each. The steamed buns were soft and bouncy, their round fullness delighting him even as his stomach rumbled from the delicious aroma of buns assaulting his nose. Though Gu Yue had given him food in the morning, it was a meager portion and barely able to fill his stomach. This, coupled with him using up his blood essence in the series of trials, meant that he was starving. The sudden appearance of food in this trial was the most beautiful scene he had ever witnessed. Tang Wuling devoured each bun in 3 bites, and an instant later, 4 buns had already been demolished. Hearing Tang Wuling plead on their behalf, Shishi relaxed, placing his hands behind his head and leaning back in his chair as he leisurely waited. Xu Shaoan was a bit more reasonable, sitting down cross-legged to meditate. Gu Yue was the only one who picked up a bun to accompany Tang Wuling in his meal. Shen Yi frowned. What are those 2 doing? Why aren't they starting? You only have 30 minutes for this trial. However many you have eaten at the end of the 30 minutes will go into your score calculation. Shishi smiled. Teacher Shen, just wait and see. In the few seconds they had conversed, 8 buns had already vanished into Tang Wuling's stomach. He let out a gentle sigh as he patted it. I feel a lot better now with some food in my belly. The reason why Tang Wuling could eat so much was that his bloodline consumed a lot of energy. This, when combined with his digestive ability, meant that his stomach's capacity was 10 times that of an ordinary person's. Those 8 buns had instantly broken down into nutrients to replenish his starved body. Thinking he was feeling unwell, Shen Yi said, eat slower. It doesn't matter how fast you can eat as long as you can eat enough for this trial. If you eat too quickly, your digestion will slow down and later affect how. Before she could even finish her sentence, Tang Wuling had snatched another 4 steamed buns and stuffed 2 of them down with ease. Shishi smirked. Teacher Shen, you don't need to worry about our captain. His greatest strength isn't his combat ability, but his stomach. He managed to eat our dining hall into poverty, so what are a few steamed buns to him? His words rang true. The first window at East the Academy served nutritious food, but that came at a steep price. Even then, Tang Wuling's stomach had only been satisfied because the higher quality of food had made up for the lower quality, and the steamed buns before them were just average buns. Their nutritional content negligible. Shen Yi then witnessed what it truly meant for one to be called a rice bucket. No, a rice tub. Tang Wuling calculated as he ate. If 15 buns equaled 6 points and 20 was 7 points, then he needed to eat 35 of the 50 buns on the tray to get a full score. No more than 8 minutes from the start of the trial, Tang Wuling had already inhaled 35 steamed buns, while Gu Yue had only eaten about 4 or 5. Tang Wuling sauntered over to Xu Shaoan's tray and, as if his previous record was just a warm-up, he devoured 35 buns in 7 minutes. Then, he went over to Shishi. Shen Yi was nearly surprised at first, but her expression soon changed to shock, then dumbfoundedness, and finally, stupefaction. 22 minutes in, he finished eating 35 buns for Shishi too. He had eaten a total of 105 steamed buns now, but his belly hadn't bulged one bit. Shen Yi was certain that they weren't using any soul power at all, which only served to deepen her and the other examiner's shock. In all his long years of supervising this trial, that examiner had never seen such a glutton. Tang Wuling finally came to Gu Yue's table. She stood up and gave him her seat and began handing him buns as Tang Wuling continued gorging himself. The speed at which Gu Yue handed him the steamed buns could only just keep up with the rate they disappeared into his belly. At the 28-minute mark, he finished 35 buns for Gu Yue. However, he showed no signs of slowing down. Time is up. The stupefied examiner just barely remembered to call the time. He had eaten 48 of the 50 buns on Gu Yue's tray, leaving only a lonely pair. How can he do this? Tang Wuling patted his belly, still wishing to continue. Teacher Shen, we got full marks. Right. Shen Yi nodded and immediately turned to leave. A monster. He really has the potential of a monster. Was he always such a monster? Is his stomach a bottomless pit? Teacher Shen, can I take the leftover steamed buns with me? I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Shen Yi stumbled. She waved her hand, indicating for him to do as he wished. Tang Wuling showed no restraint and swept all the leftover buns into a few bags, then stored them in his storage ring. Only then did he follow behind Shen Yi with a content smile plastered on his face. After a half-hour's rest and a good meal, his blood essence was nearly fully replenished. Unfortunately, the steamed buns weren't that nutritious. Otherwise, his condition would be perfect. All 4 got full points for the 6th trial. Elder Kai currently sat in a luxurious room, her face contorting into a strange expression as she listened to the report from the middle-aged man in front of her. Yes, they got full marks. It was reported that they even took the leftover buns. It seems the majority was eaten by Tang Wuling. Chapter 265. Points. Elder Kai kept silent for several long moments before muttering. It looks like I won't have to secretly give them some bonus points. At this rate, they'll manage to get to 60. Maybe that brat's strength is related to his stomach. Where did Chuoshi even find these little monsters? Especially that Tang Wuling and Dou Yue. The first trial tested spiritual power, the second, combat ability, while the third tested for adaptability and courage. The subsequent fourth, fifth, and sixth trials tested talent, a second profession, and willpower. As for the seventh trial, it was a marathon of endurance. Indeed, it would push their bodies to the limit. When Tang Wuling and the others arrived at the room of the seventh trial, they were surprised to find other examinees still present. Time mattered less for this trial of endurance. It was split into 3 tests, running 10 kilometers, squatting 50 kilograms 1,000 times, and 1,000 chin-ups. Any exam taker who finished all 3 tests would be awarded 6 points, while finishing within an hour would net them full marks. Every additional 10 minutes would cost them 1 point, down to a minimum of 6. These tests would be the same no matter what type of soul master the examinee was. Beyond a shadow of doubt, power-type soul masters held the advantage in this trial. Fairness was not a concern. Had the trials been fair, the first one would not have tested spiritual power, seeing how power-type soul masters clearly lacked in that area. Just like in the first trial, this one would see many souls master eliminated from the exam. It was difficult for any single soul master to score well in all of the trials since they each favored different types of ability. This was also the reason why Shrek Academy's acceptance rate was so low. Even so, this trial was kinder than the others in that it had no hard restriction on time. Thus, hours after the exam started, there were still some examinees working hard to obtain those 6 points. Hearing the trial's requirements, Tang Wuling cast a nervous glance at Dou Yue and Xu Xiaoan. Both he and Xi could easily pass the tests, but it would prove difficult for the 2 girls since they weren't physical types. They scored a total of 0 points in the 4th and 5th trials, so they had to make it up by getting high scores in the following ones. However, this trial fundamentally worked against Dou Yue and Xu Xiaoan. Suppressing his anxiety, Tang Wuling asked, "Teacher Shen, how many trials does the exam have? And how many points do we need to pass?" Shen Yi said, "There are 10 trials, and you need 60 points to pass." Tang Wuling immediately took to calculating. If we need 60 points and we can get a maximum of 80 points, then we only have 20 points of leeway. With how many points we each have now, Dou Yue and Xu Xiaoan should still be able to pass if they get 0 points in this trial. But who knows how hard the last 3 trials will be. Can you tell us what the remaining trials will test? Tang Wuling asked. Shen Yi answered immediately, "I can't." Tang Wuling continued, "Then can you tell us how many points each of the 3 endurance tests are worth?" 2 points, Shen Yi said. Tang Wuling made a few more calculations before turning to Dou Yue and Xu Xiaoan. "You two only need to run 10 kilometers. Xi, we'll complete all 3. Let's get started," he told them, his voice resolute. They didn't need to go out to run. They had specialized soul treadmills. Neither of the girls inquired about Tang Wuling's calculations. They both trusted that someone as stingy as him would definitely have the necessary practice with numbers. Tang Wuling began running on the soul treadmill, his pace mysteriously fast. As an agility-type soul master, Xi could burst with even greater speed on this straight path, yet Tang Wuling would not lose out in a long-distance run. Shen Yi walked over to the side of Tang Wuling's treadmill, eyes wide at his speed. "Why do you only want them to score 2 points? Aren't you worried that they won't be able to score enough points later on?" Tang Wuling said, "Their bodies aren't that strong, so it's basically impossible for them to finish the chin-ups and squats. If I urged them to complete those, they would end up wasting not only their time but also their stamina, which would put us at a disadvantage in the later trials. I would rather have us conserve our strength and do our best in the final 3 trials. After all, we did score quite well in the trials we got points for. We still have a chance this way." Shen Yi smiled. "Excellent. What a thorough analysis." Tang Wuling and Xi only took about 10 minutes to finish their runs. They then immediately tackled the second test, squats. Tang Wuling could do 50 kilogram squats like they were nothing, and he didn't slow down one bit for the whole duration. Xi was in a similar situation since he had a sturdy body as an agility-type soul master. Even without using soul power, he would still swiftly clear the squats. But fortunately, this trial didn't restrict the usage of soul power. It was during this test that the might of Tang Wuling's golden dragon king bloodline revealed itself. Not even 10 minutes later, he had finished 1,000 squats, then began his 1,000 chin-ups. 30 minutes had yet to pass when he finished all 3 tests. Dou Yue and Xu Xiaoan had both taken about 20 minutes to finish their 10-kilometer runs. They were resting by the side while waiting for the others. Xi lagged behind Tang Wuling, taking 45 minutes to finish all 3 tests. Even so, it was enough to get a full score. Not in any rush to continue, Tang Wuling and the others rested for 15 more minutes. As long as they left within an hour of starting, Tang Wuling and Xi would get 4 points. The girls just had to give up on the other 2 trials, and they would be fine. "Teacher Shen, how many points do we each have now?" Tang Wuling asked. Shen Yi glanced at a form she was holding. After the 7th trial, Tang Wuling, "You have 50 points." She couldn't help but glance at Tang Wuling when she read that. Excluding the points lost in the 4th and 5th trials, he currently had a full score. So far, he received maximum points possible on every trial. Dou Yue, 38 points. Xi, 48 points. Xu Xiaoan, 40 points. Since Dou Yue had conserved her strength in the earlier trials and only completed one of the endurance tests, she had the lowest number of points of the 4. Tang Wuling and Xi were both in the safe zone, with them being only short by 10 and 12 points respectively. In any case, it was impossible for them to directly enter the inner court, so they only had to meet the minimum passing threshold. On the other hand, Dou Yue was in a tough spot. She only had a leeway of 8 points in the next 3 trials. In other words, she couldn't lose more than 3 points on each trial. If she did, then she would be eliminated. Although Xu Xiaoan's situation wasn't as precarious, it wasn't much better either. After resting and adjusting their bodies, Xi fatigue was relieved while Tang Wuling was already in tip-top shape. As for the 2 girls, considering they had only run 10 kilometers, they fared quite well. With the wealth of soul power they possessed, it only took them a moment to get back to top condition. The 8th trial would soon be upon them. Tang Wuling calculated their possible points while formulating a plan. The 8th trial is a comprehensive battle. You will fight a current student of Shrek Academy. The available opponents are random, so your luck will also be a factor. Last 10 minutes against your opponent to pass. Defeat them, and you will receive 4 points. Alternatively, marks between 6 and 10 will be awarded based on your performance. Upon hearing that the following trial would be a battle, Tang Wuling let out a sigh of relief. He was sure that, at the very least, Dou Yue wouldn't face any difficulties this time around. As for Xu Xiaoan, it would depend on her luck. Tang Wuling looked up to survey the sky's color. With 7 trials behind them, evening twilight now covered the horizon. His heart thumped as he asked, "Teacher Shen, will the 4 of us take this trial together or one at a time?" Shen Yi glanced at him. "You'll take turns. Great. Then can we decide on the order?" Shen Yi said, "There will be 10 opponents for you all to choose from, so it isn't just your strength being tested, but also your judgment. There are both strong and weak people hidden among the 10. Some may naturally restrain you, while others may be restrained by you. This means a large portion of your performance will be determined by your choice of opponent." Yes. They now found themselves in a large, secular room, much larger than the previous few trial rooms. While they were taking the 7th trial, Shen Yi was preparing the current one, which meant that their 10 possible opponents were already waiting for them. Chapter 266, to battle. The opponents Class 0 would face had only joined the academy a grade before them, so there wasn't much of a gap between everyone's ages. However, they were all geniuses who passed Shrek's entrance exam and had been educated by Shrek Academy. This was a trial of true combat, a battle between 2 soul masters. An air of indifference in her words, Shen Yi said, "You may begin selecting your opponents. Once you've made your choice, you may no longer change your mind. All selections are final. This trial's only rule is that you are not permitted to use soul devices during battle. You have 10 minutes to choose." Tang Wuling nodded to Shen Yi, then gathered his teammates. Tang Wuling lowered his voice. "I have already put together an order for us to go in. I'll be the first, second will be Xi, and Dou Yue will follow afterwards. Xiaoan, you'll go last. Xi, Dou Yue, you 2 need to drag out your battles for as long as possible. Especially you, Xi. It should be easy for you since you're an agility-type soul master. We need to stall for nightfall so that Xiaoan can use her star wheel like staff." Xu Xiaoan's eyes sparkled as she nodded. Dou Yue also gave a slight nod. Tang Wuling continued, "As for selecting your opponents, Just pick whoever you feel is best. Before either 10 possible opponents. Generally, a soul master's outward appearance reflected the qualities of their martial soul. Power-type soul masters would have robust bodies while range or spiritual-type soul masters would have more delicate physiques. After inspecting his options, Shishi's gaze settled on a strong-looking student. Just as he was about to announce his choice, Tang Wuling grabbed his arm. He then said in a hushed voice, "Let me remind you all that this is Shrek Academy, the legendary monster academy. I'm sure you're aware of the school's motto. They only accept monsters, not ordinary people. That means we can't judge our opponents as we normally would. Looking at them from the opposite perspective might even prove more accurate." Shishi felt as if he was struck by lightning. He gave Tang Wuling a big thumbs up before once more examining the 10 students lined up in a row. Attribute compatibility between soul masters was crucial at lower levels. If Shishi faced a control-type soul master, then he would be thoroughly subdued. On the other hand, power-type soul masters feared range-type soul masters due to their ability to keep the former at a distance while also attacking them. All things considered, it was crucial to pick opponents they would do well against. Despite Tang Wuling's confidence in their ability, he was aware that the world had no shortage of geniuses, especially here, in the continent's #1 academy. Shishi pointed. "I choose number 2 as my opponent." The student he pointed at had a slender figure that was almost certainly of an agility-type soul master. Xu Shaoan picked the sturdy man Shishi had nearly picked beforehand. He was number 6. Gu Yue said, "Number 1. The first student had the most ordinary appearance of the 10. He lacked any unique traits whatsoever. The last one to pick was Tang Wuling. His eyes wandered for a moment before finally settling on one student. "I choose number 10. His legs were already taking him to the arena as he spoke. Student number 10 was a tall, slender girl whose eyes displayed a trace of arrogance. Her looks were above average, but still a whole notch below Xu Shaoan's. She was at about the same level as Gu Yue. Shen Yi said, "I will be supervising this match. You must listen to my commands during the match and you must stop the moment I tell you to." Understood. Her words were clearly directed at Tang Wuling. "Yes," Tang Wuling said in deference. "Good. Get ready. Begin." Without any superfluous words, the match began. Student number 10's eyes lit up as she instantly shot forward. Like a cheetah, she pounced on Tang Wuling with lightning speed. Shishi gaped at her speed. He had always been confident in his speed, but he couldn't even compare with her. 3 soul rings appeared around the girl, 2 of them yellow and 1 purple. Her ears twitched as silver streaks appeared in her hair, and her pupils swished into vertical slits. A beast martial soul. The snow leopard. Tang Wuling identified it instantly. He didn't have much of an impression of the snow leopard martial soul. All he could recall was it being a rarely seen beast from cold climates that possessed both speed and ice attribute attacks. A smile blossomed on Tang Wuling's lips. What agility-type soul masters feared most were control-type soul masters. As a control-type himself, he already held the advantage. Moreover, he possessed the purple demon eyes. He may be nowhere near as fast as her, but his eyes could still keep up with her. 2 purple soul rings appeared beneath him while strands of blue silver grass shot out like a giant net. An agility-type soul master being bound by a control-type essentially signaled the end of the battle. The very next moment, however, a startling scene unfolded. Student number 10 suddenly halted in the air. Snowflakes exploding out of her body as her first soul ring lit up. Snow whirled around her body which sent the temperature within the arena into a plummet. Popping noises blanketed the air as streams of snow collided with a swarm of blue silver grass. The blue silver grass turned sluggish under the snow's influence. Had it not evolved several times already, perhaps the grass would have shattered on the spot. Isn't she an agility-type soul master? These snowflakes seem to come from a control or assault type. She's so quick, yet she isn't approaching like an agility type. Shrek Academy really is filled with a bunch of deceptive freaks. As the 2 martial souls clashed, the blizzard grew in density. Tang Wuling amassed his blue silver grass, but it still couldn't penetrate the wall of snow as it drifted around his grass and toward his body. Tang Wuling turned tail without any hesitation. Behind him, blue silver grass spun like a blender, whipping away all the snowflakes nearing him. Coward. His opponent coldly snorted, the air hissing as she willed the snow to pursue him. She soon vanished amidst the blizzard while the snow itself gathered into the form of a leopard that leapt into pursuit. The students had a different assignment from that of the examinees. They were tasked with ending their battles as quickly as possible. The faster they were, the better they would be rewarded. The girl's second soul ring lit up. The appearance of her leopard had triggered a second drop in temperature inside the arena, which served to lower the speed of Tang Wuling's grass even further. The leopard instantly broke through the sluggish grass and then rushed Tang Wuling. Tang Wuling's appearance was unsightly as he madly fled in a winding path. Blue silver grass continuously whipped at the leopard, chasing him in an attempt to slow it down as much as possible. He cut quite the sorry figure. The girl held her spot in the center of the arena, commanding her leopard to continue its pursuit. Trying to stall for time. "Then let's see just how quick you are." After running for a while, Tang Wuling could feel that something was amiss. There was something off about the temperature. Chapter 267. The Snow Leopard of 10. Tang Wuling's movements slowed down as the temperature lowered even further, and a layer of ice formed on the ground. His blue silver grass continued to whip at the pursuing leopard, but his soul power was quickly depleting. Despite his situation, Tang Wuling kept running and exhaling white fog with each breath. Humph. "Let's finish this already." A streak of blue flashed through the girl's eyes as her third soul ring lit up. She leaned forward and dashed toward Tang Wuling, reaching out towards him with her right hand. A white light enveloped her, sending an overflowing sensation of strength through her body. Behind her appeared the image of a giant snow leopard swiping its claw at Tang Wuling. Her third soul skill, Snow Leopard Claw, was a 1,000-year level soul skill with both spiritual and physical attributes. Anyone it struck would become dizzy for 5 seconds and endure extreme cold to the point of freezing. It even possessed the ability to send opponents flying. That was when the girl noticed a golden flash in Tang Wuling's eyes. The grass around him sprung into the air and then dove into the frosty ground, striking at the leopard behind him, and at the Snow Leopard Claw. The leopard received the attack in its entirety and disintegrated into snowflakes, while the Snow Leopard Claw met the blue silver impaling array in an explosive clash. In the end, the gap in soul power proved too deep. The blue silver impaling array was rooted into the icy ground which left the Snow Leopard Claw a clear path to Tang Wuling. He sent out a punch with his right fist to meet the attack, but he was promptly sent flying backward with a loud bang. Let's see if he can still endure this. Is having 2,000-year soul rings even that amazing? The girl wore the smile of a victor. She was confident that, at the very least, the Snow Leopard Claw's extreme cold would sap Tang Wuling of all his fighting strength, not to mention the dizzying effect. The leopard previously destroyed by the blue silver impaling array had also scattered into snowflakes, dropping the arena's temperature even lower. She couldn't see any way for Tang Wuling to continue fighting back. However, though he had been sent flying, Tang Wuling didn't crash into the floor and a sudden descent of snow obscured his figure from her eyes. It was cold, but not nearly frigid enough to stifle him. He willed his bloodline into power, speeding up his blood circulation to expel the chill from his body. With his bloodline in effect, the cold now had little effect on him. Tang Wuling stooped down towards the ground before dashing out to the side, using the cover of the snow to create some distance from the girl. As for the Snow Leopard Claw's dizzying effect, the skill hit Tang Wuling's right arm, but his golden scales made first contact, so the dizzying effect couldn't spread to the rest of his body. At the same time, his purple demon eyes dispelled the spiritual effect of the attack. On the surface, it looked as if Tang Wuling was being greatly pressured, but in reality, a battle of wits and courage was being fought, a battle which Tang Wuling ended up winning. His biggest gain was finding out what his opponent's 3 soul skills were. As the snowflakes landed on the ground, the aftermath became clear. Just as the girl was about to report to Shen Yi, she was left dumbstruck at the sight of Tang Wuling standing in the arena, at the furthest point from her. How can this be? Isn't he cold? The girl gawked at Tang Wuling. A resplendent smile formed on Tang Wuling's lips. He simply waited there, not making a single move. The girl snorted and pointed a finger at him, commanding snowflakes to shoot toward him. Just like before, snow besieged him from all sides. This time, however, the girl also rushed alongside it. Naturally, as a Shrek student, she wouldn't be discouraged this easily. Moreover, she had yet to use her full strength. Blue silver grass spread outward from Tang Wuling's position and began spinning. Not even by using his purple demon eyes could he completely penetrate the snowy mist. However, the whirling grass around him warded off attacks from all directions. The strands of grass twinkled limpidly, simply refusing to yield to the oncoming blizzard as they spun into a giant protective net. Tang Wuling waved both his arms and began pouring soul power into the grass to strengthen it. As he did so, the blue silver grass's inner veins displayed a faint golden glow. His martial soul might have been blue silver grass, but it was was blue silver grass that had already evolved twice. With the aid of his 2,000-year soul rings, it was more than enough to hold his opponent at bay for the moment. The leopard, now reformed of snow, rammed into the net with a big thump, pushing it inward toward Tang Wuling. It looked like it might reach him any second. However, the blue silver impaling array appeared and surrounded the leopard in a spiky embrace. The now filled with holes leopard was left stunned in midair. Tang Wuling took advantage of this by using his blue silver grass to cover his retreat, opening up some distance between him and the leopard. As this exchange took place, his blue silver grass spun around him without pause. It continued to protectively whip around him from start to finish. At that moment, a figure burst out of the leopard, charging toward Tang Wuling with lightning speed. It was student number 10. She was too quick for him to react. Like a bolt of white lightning, she instantly appeared before him. But in that same instant, golden light exploded from Tang Wuling's body. He shot into the air like a spring while his blue silver grass moved in to bind the girl. The girl was startled. She had created the snow leopard precisely for the sake of this sneak attack. By relying on its speed, she suppressed his blue silver grass. But a strand of golden blue silver grass had launched Tang Wuling into the air before she could execute her attack. She wanted to pursue. However, the swarm of grass trying to bind her forced her to take evasive action. The grass would simply entangle her if she chose to follow him into the air. From the very beginning of the battle, they assumed the roles of fleeing rabbit and chasing fox. There wasn't a single upset as the girl took the role of attacker and Tang Wuling the defender. He had undeniably just been passively enduring an onslaught of attacks. The girl's cultivation base was undoubtedly higher than Tang Wuling's. The gap between 3 rings and 2 rings nearly unbridgeable. As the assailant, however, she consumed slightly more soul power than him, and with her constant use of area control skills, she would soon be left without the soul power necessary to erupt with one final decisive attack. After seeing several of her attack plans fail, her head cooled. If I continue this way, I might lose. What an annoying guy. Tang Wuling had circulated his soul power according to the mysterious heaven method throughout the battle. Having practiced it for all these years now, his soul power was purer and denser than normal, giving him the advantage among his peers. In truth, he found battles of attrition uncomfortable. He was far more accustomed to ending them explosively, but his only choice was to battle like this so that he could buy enough time for Xu Xiaoan. His purpose in this fight was to stall for time. Naturally, his soul power consumption was just as severe as his opponent's. Tang Wuling's plan was meticulous. By going first, he would have plenty of time to rest and recuperate while his teammates fought. With the mysterious heaven method and his low soul power capacity, it wouldn't be long before he was back to full. Snowflakes blotted the sky and the girl disappeared into the flurry once more. Then, as if the snow had gained eyes of its own, it shot toward Tang Wuling in one giant stream. The girl had swiftly adjusted her tactics. Didn't you want a battle of attrition? Then let's see who gets exhausted first. How could you possibly compete against me with only 2 rings? The blue silver grass spun into a protective screen in front of Tang Wuling, diverting the incoming attack. Icy mist invaded his body in the grass, sapping away his strength. In this manner, the two continued to wear each other out. Both of them were currently using their first soul skills, as they were the most efficient in terms of soul power consumption. While previously they would use their soul skills freely, they were now more conservative. Chapter 268, Battle of Patience, Biding Time. The girl displayed judgment worthy of a student of Shrek Academy. When her initial attacks failed, she immediately switched to a more conservative style of fighting. Rather than being anxious to achieve victory, she slowly whittled away at Tang Wuling in a battle of attrition. She resembled a cheetah stalking its prey, patiently waiting for the best time to end everything with one strike. Although both combatants were only using their first soul skills, the constant clashes quickly ate away at their soul power. Despite the fact that Tang Wuling's blue silver grass only needed to cover a far smaller area, the blanket of cold steadily sapped his strength. Even madly circulating the mysterious heaven method could not make up for his deficiency in soul power, and the gap between the two soon reared its ugly head. The range of his blue silver grass's defense grew smaller and smaller, and the girl's offensive slowly pushed him back. A layer of frost covered the strands of grass while icicles sprouted out of the ground. Regardless of how one looked at it, he was being forced into a corner. The situation continued like this until the requirement to earn 6 points had been met. Tang Wuling persisted for 10 whole minutes. As the clock ticked on, the girl grew more and more astonished. She had never expected her opponent to be so troublesome to deal with. Like a small boat, he tenaciously endured wave after wave of her attacks, not yielding even once. Such resilience gave her a headache. However, she didn't dare to attack rashly since her opponent was a control type soul master. If he had any tricks up his sleeve, the tables would instantly be turned. So she just chose to engage him in this battle of attrition. Allowing her opponent to earn a passing score would be fine since it just meant she wouldn't get a reward. However, if she were defeated, the girl would have points deducted. Seconds slowly became minutes as time passed. The power behind each combatant's attacks began to wane, a clear sign that they were approaching the limits of their soul power. The snow in the air had thinned by this point, and the girl's figure could be seen. Tang Wuling's blue silver grass, on the other hand, no longer thrashed about as violently as before. The glow along the length of its strand significantly dimmer. Without warning, the snowflakes came at him with renewed strength. Tang Wuling's eyes flashed as he subconsciously retreated 2 steps, urging his blue silver grass to whip at the snow. The girl made her move at the same time. Only 30% of her soul power remained after their long stalemate. Considering her own condition, she was certain Tang Wuling was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Regardless of what he did, he wouldn't have enough soul power to continue. It was time for the victor to be decided. Hidden in the flurry of snow, the girl stealthily approached Tang Wuling like a snow leopard, revealing its fangs before pouncing. Snow assailed Tang Wuling's blue silver grass, eating up the last of his soul power. Overall, he only had about 40% of the soul power capacity that his opponent did. He wouldn't have lasted this long without the mysterious heaven method. A white figure burst through the snow cover in front of Tang Wuling, covering him in sleet and chilling him down to the bone. As his body grew rigid from the cold, a white, clawed hand seized the opportunity to reach for his shoulder. In the blink of an eye, 25 minutes of battle had passed under Shen Yu's supervision. Tang Wuling had earned 9 points by this point, so it would be fine if he lost now. I guess this kid isn't that talented after all. Ignoring his golden soul ring, his martial soul is merely blue silver grass. Yet, he wouldn't have gotten a near-perfect score if he weren't able to calmly come up with a strategy and execute it. He might not be a peak-level genius, but he's still quite talented. However, in her opinion, Tang Wuling's strength still didn't make the cut. If student number 10 hadn't approached the battle cautiously, Shen Yu suspected that the match would have ended in just a few minutes. Yet Tang Wuling was now being thoroughly suppressed by someone who wasn't even a control-type soul master. With the addition of the girl's power and speed, Shen Yu didn't see a way for him to overturn the tide of battle. Despite having come to her own conclusion, Shen Yu found the composure of the rest of Class 0 puzzling. Not a single one of them batted an eye at what seemed to be the impending defeat of their captain. Do these kids just have cool heads? Or, an eruption of golden light interrupted her thought. The moment the snow-white hand touched his shoulder, Tang Wuling smiled. It's about time. Tang Wuling's 2 purple soul rings disappeared with his blue silver grass, and a tyrannical aura of blood essence exploded from his body to replace them. He hadn't eaten all those steam buns for nothing. They had fueled a complete recovery of his blood essence. His powerful aura immediately dispelled the chill in the surroundings. Soul power receded from his veins, and in its stead, pure, unadulterated power coursed through. The girl struck Tang Wuling's right shoulder, but was shocked to discover that it was as hard as a block of metal. She recoiled from the impact, her white hand numb. I only have 30% of my soul power left, so shouldn't he have even less? Isn't he a control-type soul master? Yet she refused to give in. As a student of Shrek Academy, she immediately reacted to this sudden turn of events and switched from aiming for the best possible result to damage control. The moment she raised her head to make her move, however, a pair of purple eyes came into view. Her plan to retreat and put distance between them was instantly destroyed as the world began to spin around her. Before she could flee, a large golden hand darted toward her shoulder in the same way she had tried to strike Tang Wuling's. In the next instant, it moved to her neck and closed tightly around it, squeezing down on her carotid. With her soul power sealed and her blood flow cut off, she eventually went limp. Soon enough, the snow dispersed and the golden light died away, revealing the scene for all to see. Tang Wuling held the girl in one arm, keeping her from collapsing to the ground. She had fainted. He actually won. Soul masters with leopard martial souls excelled at biding their time, yet in today's battle of patience, student number 10 had lost. She smacked a hand to his forehead. Captain is really getting sneakier and sneakier. He actually spent 30 entire minutes to lure her into his trap. In the end, the girl never realized that Captain actually excels at brute force, not control. In reality, Shishi's claims were wrong. Tang Wuolin wasn't fond of such roundabout tactics. He preferred annihilating his opponents in a quick, efficient manner. However, for Xu Xiaowen's sake, he had to stall for time, and his opponent was a student of Shrek Academy. If an all-out attack failed, he would have put himself in a bad position. The outcome had been decided the moment the girl decided to charge at Tang Wuolin. Even more than pure strength, Tang Wuolin excelled in close combat. His skills at close range were absolute. In fact, it could even make up for a soul ring disadvantage and make people with one more ring than him weep. Tang Wuolin. 10 points. Shen Yi's eyes were wide with disbelief as she declared the result. Chapter 269. Shishi's terrifying opponent. Not only had Tang Wuolin won, it had been a stomp. Was he waiting for this the entire time? Even though Shishi muttered this under his breath, Shen Yi heard him clearly. He's just a 13-year-old kid. How could he be so patient? This is just unknown to Shen Yi. Tang Wuolin's second profession was that of a lonesome blacksmith. Since the day he met Mang Tian, his temperament had been taken to the grindstone and continuously sharpened to this very day. He had been forging since he was 6 years old. 7 years was more than enough to forever alter the life of a person without talent, let alone the peerless blacksmithing prodigy that was Tang Wuolin. Student number 10 soon woke up, her eyes instantly moving to stare at Tang Wuolin in disbelief. She reflected on the match and how she lost, but no matter how she looked at it, she couldn't understand how he had snatched victory with his soul power depleted. What is up with his body? And just what was that purple light in his eyes? She had fainted in the final moments of the battle, and the snow had obscured everyone else's line of sight, so no one had clearly seen what happened. Next, Shen Yi said, Shishi and student number 2, the slender one, entered the arena at the same time. Tang Wuolin returned to his companions. Not a single word was exchanged as he immediately sat down cross-legged and began meditating using the mysterious heaven method. His opponent had been powerful and had pressured him immensely, draining all of his soul power. There were 2 mysterious trials remaining, and although he already had the 60 points required to pass the exam, he still needed enough strength to help his teammates pass them. His number 1 priority was to have the entire team enter Shrek Academy. For his sake, his teammates had nearly lost their chance to enter this sacred academy. Although he didn't say anything about it, such deep loyalty had been engraved upon his heart. Begin. The 2 combatants burst into action. Shishi charged straight at his opponent. As an agility-type soul master through and through, close quarters combat was his only option. Student number 2 rushed at Shishi as well, his eyes possessing an eerie calm beyond his years. The gap between the 2 rapidly closed. In terms of speed, Shishi was definitely the victor. Neither had released their martial soul yet. They were both waiting for an opening. Their soul rings only appeared when the distance between them had shrunk to a mere 10 meters. Their soul ring configurations were identical, 2 yellow and 1 purple. However, the way in which they manifested was completely different. While Shishi now wielded the light dragon dagger, his opponent underwent a monstrous transformation. The instant their soul rings had appeared, student number 2's slender body swelled with strength, his purple soul ring flashing with light. He's already using his 1,000-year soul skill. The Shrek Academy student's body inflated like a balloon, his clothes bursting into shreds and leaving only undergarments, made of some insanely elastic material. Brown hair now covered his body. Although he still retained somewhat of a humanoid shape, he definitely didn't look human anymore. At 4 meters tall, he towered over Shishi with 2 burly arms attached to his broad shoulders. His body seemed to rumble with raw power. Upon seeing this, Shishi wanted to run back to Tang Wuolin and give him a big thumbs up for his suggestion. We really can't judge Shrek Academy students by appearances alone. This guy's martial soul has to be a giant gorilla. Maybe it's even the. As Shishi pondered this, his opponent finished transforming and launched an attack. 2 massive arms recklessly smashed the ground. Shishi leapt into the air in response, brandishing his light dragon dagger to unleash a golden blade of light. Lines cut into the walls and floor of the arena, rippling with golden light and working to counter the quaking ground. The shock wave below Shishi left him astonished. If he had been just a second slower, he would have immediately lost. Student number 2 didn't even bother to dodge the light dragon blade. He simply lowered his head and met it head on, then shot toward Shishi, clearly unaffected by the attack. Even though Shishi was an agility-type soul master, his opponent's leap far surpassed his own. Student number 2 looked like a monster as he soared toward Shishi, his 2 arms swinging toward Shishi with the might of a mountain. He's so strong. Unable to exert any force in the air, Shishi split into 3 clones, each kicking off of the other 2 and speeding in 3 different directions. It was an ingenious play to keep out of range of the monstrous student number 2. This shock filled the faces of the Shrek Academy students. Unknown to Shishi, all of them were observing his match with keen interest since he had actually picked student number 2, the strongest of the 10 arranged opponents. Shishi splitting into 3 clones didn't face student number 2. His first soul ring lit up, and he threw 3 lightning fast punches. The pressure of his punches made the air hiss. Shishi was stunned to find each of the 3 blasts of air heading for each of his clones. Heavens! What sort of monster is this guy? How can his attacks be this terrifying? However, even in such a helpless situation, the 3 shimmering clones dashed through the air once more, seemingly kicking off of thin air to escape the attack by a hair's breadth. A trace of surprise finally flashed through his opponent's eyes. He had just witnessed Shishi's 3rd soul ring light up a second time. Both sides returned to the ground at the same time. Considering what happened up to this point, it was clear that student number 2 held the upper hand, but it wasn't an overwhelming advantage. Even though he used his 3rd soul skill to immediately try to smash the nimble boy, Shishi managed to escape his barrage of air blasts. In a battle, the attacker always became exhausted faster than the defender. Since their ranks were about equal, Shishi managed to seize a tiny advantage this way. However, that was all in theory. The reality of battle had yet to be tested. Shishi was painfully aware of his own shortcomings. Although his opponent had gone all out with their 3rd soul skill, he had done the same. The overwhelming pressure his opponent exuded forced him to use light dragon clones to get some breathing room, but the 3 punches that followed had forced him to bring out shadow dragon clones too. Shishi's response had been clever, but it took a lot out of him, maybe leaving him a bit more tired than his opponent. Shishi could only rejoice in the fact that he possessed the mysterious heaven method. With its recovery power, he was confident that he would be able to barely outlast his opponent. Without making a move, student number 2 patiently observed Shishi's 3 clones running around in different directions. Although he had mighty ranged attacks at his disposal, it was still impossible for him to attack in 3 directions at once. The range of his attack couldn't cover the entire arena. As a Shrek Academy student, he naturally had an abundance of combat experience, so he had a hunch that his opponent would strike soon. Using a 1,000-year soul skill that produced 3 clones had to be a huge drain on Shishi's soul power, that left him no other option. And student number 2's hunch was correct. Chapter 270, the ambitious Shishi. The instant Shishi's feet touched the ground, he shot toward his opponent, with both light and shadow dragon clones now active. He had no time to dally. His opponent was a power-type soul master who also had frightening range options, these 2 traits placing him in a league of his own. Without his clones, Shishi would have found it difficult to endure his opponent's onslaught, but with them out, his soul power was quickly running out. The 3 visible clones, now much faster than before, charged at the solitary figure in the center of the arena. Shishi rushed in, this time without employing his light dragon blade. Student number 2 simply stood there, his grim face and titanic figure lending him the impression of an immovable mountain. As Shishi's 2nd soul ring lit up, his 3 light dragon clones burst into action to unleash a light dragon storm. Shishi was an agility-type soul master, which meant he had exceptionally high attack power. His current opponent, however, possessed equally impressive defensive capabilities, to the point where he could simply shrug off the light dragon blade. However, light dragon storm was on a completely different level. Shishi was confident the attack would injure his opponent as long as it landed. Student number 2 responded to the attack, the motion of his burly arms all too familiar for Shishi. If Tang Wuolin weren't currently meditating, his eyes would definitely go wide. Student number 2 was using a Tang sect secret art, controlling crane, capturing dragon. Shishi felt an aura expand outwards violently from student number 2's position. Upon impact, his clones were knocked out of light dragon storm. He then saw his opponent make a pressing motion with his hands. His 2nd soul ring ring lighting up as he did so. The air in the arena suddenly changed. As it began to rumble like thunder, Shishi's 3 light dragon clones and his 3 shadow dragon clones were sent flying backwards. The thundering roars roused Tang Wuling from his meditation. He opened his eyes, only to see Shishi's clones being sent flying, and then converging in the air to reform into one. Student number 2 stomped off the ground, launching himself into the air like an artillery shell. His first soul ring lit up and he threw a punch. A shockwave propagated outwards. This time, Shishi was in no position to use his clones to dodge. Repeated usage of his soul skills had left his soul power and mind in chaos, not to mention the damage he had received from being sent flying. A green light flashed over, dragging Shishi toward the ground and out of the shockwave's path. Student number 2 ceased his advance. He bowed to Shenyi and returned to the side of his fellow Shrek Academy students. The match was over. It was Shishi's defeat. From start to finish, only 5 minutes had passed. Shishi was suppressed the entire time, and without Shenyi's timely intervention, he would have even been gravely injured. This was the strength of a Shrek Academy student. In the face of true strength, twin martial souls or soul master type compatibility meant nothing. Tang Wuling was stunned. What if I had been the one to pick him? Would I have been able to last that long? Could I defeat him? He had no answer to these questions. He simply couldn't fathom the depths of student number 2's strength. Student number 2 had already returned to his original form, his clothes back to fitting tightly around his slender figure by the time he reached his classmates. Tang Wuling gulped. This guy is really powerful. Shishi's defeat wasn't disgraceful. He was able to display his full strength, but his opponent was simply overwhelming. Shishi returned to his teammates with his shoulders hanging low. Not only did he receive a measly 3 points on this trial, he would also have more points deducted at the end for failing a trial. Shrek Academy didn't care how overwhelmingly powerful his opponent was since he had chosen his opponent by himself. Tang Wuling cast a solemn look at him. Why didn't you just keep running away from him? You knew how strong he is. Shishi bitterly laughed. My clones use up too much soul power, but without them, I had no way of resisting his ranged attacks. I never stood a chance in this tiny arena. If the arena was larger, then I might have had a chance. Tang Wuling furrowed his brows. You reflect on your battle. Yes, your clones do use a lot of soul power, but have you forgotten? Your opponent was only that strong because he was also using his 1,000-year soul skill. How could his rate of consumption be any lower than yours? You have twin martial souls and the mysterious heaven method. Soul power consumption is the last thing you should lose in. Why couldn't you at least last 10 minutes? There's no way his attacks can cover the entire arena. You have 3 clones, so if you had sent them in different directions, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. You just had to control the distance between you and your clones. Instead of acting first, you should have just fought a battle of attrition. It might take more soul power to maintain your clones the further they are from each other, but that's still better than being defeated in one hit. Do you have anything to say for yourself? After listening to Tang Wuling's lecture, Shishi slapped his thigh. You're right. I can't believe I forgot that guy was also using his 1,000-year soul skill. I've been fighting too many soul beasts lately, so I even treated him like a soul beast. Shishi's voice had carried all the way to the other end of the room. Having just finished putting his jacket back on, student number 2 went stiff for a moment before raising his head to scowl at Shishi. Sensing his opponent's gaze, Shishi turned to meet it. His expression was haughty, as if to declare he would win the next time they fought. Tang Wuling couldn't help but chuckle. He had pointed out Shishi's mistakes not only to help him, but also to raise his morale. Isn't this guy a bit too resilient though? He was all depressed just a minute ago. When they finished talking, Gu Yue had already entered the arena. She looked at student number 2, a strange light flickering in her eyes. Her opponent entered the arena. It was student number 1. This student was ordinary beyond belief, practically indistinguishable from any random person found on the street. He calmly walked over to stand opposite of Gu Yue. Begin. With Shen Yi's declaration, the third match started. This was a crucial match for Gu Yue. If she scoring badly, would essentially mean that she wouldn't pass the exam. Winning was her only option. Soul rings rose up beneath both of them, but to everyone's shock, student number 1's 3 soul rings were all purple. He had 3,000-year soul rings. Student number 2 had been terrifying powerful, but he only had 2 yellow and 1 purple soul rings. Gu Yue could only begin to guess how strong her own opponent was. Generally, only range-type soul masters would immediately release their soul rings the moment a battle started. From the actions of both parties, it was clear this would be ranged battle. In reality, it really did play out this way. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.